We'll start with Steve from NASCAR. So Steve, back 9 years ago, which felt like back in February, I had the chance to see you in Daytona for one of the last on-site traditional productions of the year. And then everything went haywire. The pandemic hit and things had to change. Since then, when you had to start planning back at the beginning of the pandemic, what were some of the challenges that you had to deal with right off the bat?
Well, like everybody else, right? The safety of our people were number one. You got to figure out how to get your people home that weekend, March the 13th, when we all came home, right? Get them home safe, and then we started looking at the business, right? We never really thought about shutting down. It's like, how do we get to the next step and keep this going? Our first reaction was obviously going to do some iRacing, hit the virtual world, right? Can't do it safe in person, so we'll do it virtually. So we picked it up and started going, and that was the big thing. How do we make that first step, get back to some kind of normalcy and get racing back at the track? And a lot of good people back in Daytona at NASCAR that started putting some safety plans together, and infectious disease people came on board. And you just start thinking about how do you get back to normal as quick as you can and keep the business going.
Awesome. Ken, it was funny. We had a pre-panel call last week, and I said, 2 years ago when I saw you in IMS for the Indy 500, right? And you're like, no, Christian, that was last year. I was like, what? So the biggest race of the year that you guys do, unfortunately, usually the start of the summer seasons, usually in May, got kicked back a couple months. But when it was time to hit the track and you had to say, hey, let's hit the ground running, what were some of the challenges that you faced?
So what happened was we established, it was a domino effect, right? March 13th, we sent everyone home. The next 3 events for April were canceled.
Right.
Then 2 weeks after that, they postponed the 500 to August 23rd, we found out. So then we had a target date of June 6th for Texas Motor Speedway. We came up with there was a lot of ideas and brainstorming. We were not equipped to do a full-on Remy model, so that was out the window quickly. So it was, how do we get our crew there safely, those that feel comfortable going, with enough social distancing and PPE to make sure that everyone's safe. So we brought in an additional A unit, HD3, and our engineers got started in a plan to integrate that with our normal A unit, HD5, so we could space out graphics, EVS, and everybody to make sure there was enough working space and distance and still put on the show we're all so used to. And actually, nerves were high once we got to Texas, but I think it went off without a hitch. And from there, it became cliche to say it, but the whole season and the whole crew and the production team, we all had to stay very fluid. And that certainly the schedule we were working with June 6th changed 4 or 5 more times before the end of the year, but I'm thankful to say we got through it safely.
Right. We'll go more into the remote productions and how you guys kind of navigate it in a bit. But Steve, with NHRA, back in April, I had the chance to talk with Rob Hedrick about what you guys did during the stoppage of the races and how on Fox and on your social and digital channels, how you still got content out. My colleague Ken Berschweimer also spoke with him as well. But back when this thing, again, when the pandemic hit, what did you guys do to navigate it at NHRA?
Yeah, and it's a little bit of the combination of what Steve and Kenneth mentioned before. But for us, initially it's, okay, we're in a fluid situation. We don't necessarily know how long we're going to be down for. I think initially, first glance and not necessarily being educated on, COVID initially, we're like, okay, another week or 2 weeks, maybe we'll be down, we'll get back at it. Quickly, found out that wasn't going to be the case. And then you're scenario planning for multiple scenarios. But as you had mentioned, we were in a pretty fortunate position in that we had a pretty robust cloud-based video solution that had been set up over the last couple of years, and really, a lot of kudos to that to 2 SVG members, Ken Adelson and Mike Ricosa, for their forward thinking dating back to the NBA days and what they did with asset management. So we were in a pretty favorable position in that we had an asset management system in place through our Sony C partnership. So the immediate pivot for me was really, okay, how do we stay relevant during an indefinite amount of downtime with not knowing that? So, we were able to use that asset management system, our cloud-based system, along with some quick and swift thinking from Rob Hedrick, as you mentioned. We were able to really pivot to a kind of an at-home solution for our digital and social channels. And in doing that, we were able to combine our Sony C platform with our partners at Bebop for, really an at-home editing scenario. So we were able to turn our Glendora-based studio into an apartment-based studio at Rob Hedrick's house. And we really didn't miss a beat in being able to do a number of digital series, both live and on tape, through his hard work. And it was funny when this initially started, I went to Rob and I said, hey, how prepared are we to go to a cloud-based, digital world? And he was like, it's seamless. We can do it. And, he paid pretty close attention to what was going on in San Francisco, and being out here in California, we knew that it was a finite time period before we had to get our ducks in a row to, he packed his car as completely full as he could with every bit of our studio equipment, took it to his house. So kudos to him on that front, but at least got us going.